The galaxy was vast, but peace within it felt like a fragile thread, ready to snap at any moment. The alien kingdom of Kaloria, known for its shimmering cities built on floating islands, had grown tired of war. Their enemies were relentless, and their resources dwindled with every battle lost. Humanity, scattered across the stars after Earth's destruction, was no better off. They clung to survival in rusted ships and barren colonies, fighting among themselves as much as they fought outsiders. Both sides knew that continuing this way would lead only to mutual extinction, and so, a desperate plan was born, a marriage alliance between Kaloria's royal family and one of humanity's few remaining leaders. Princess Unji, daughter of Queen Myung-suk, stood silently in her chambers as she stared out at the endless expanse of space beyond her window. Her heart felt heavy. She had always been taught that duty came before personal desires. But this felt different. This wasn't just about politics or treaties. It was surrendering part of herself to a stranger from another species. Yoonji turned away from the window, her long silver hair flowing behind her like liquid moonlight. She sighed deeply, sitting down on the edge of her bed. Her people distrusted humans. They saw them as weak, fragile creatures who relied too heavily on machines and lacked spiritual depth. How could such beings understand the ways of Kaloria? How could they respect traditions older than the stars themselves? But Yoonji couldn't deny the logic behind the decision. If marrying a human meant saving her people, then she would do it. The preparations began swiftly. Diplomats from both sides scoured records, searching for a suitable candidate among humanity's leaders. Many names were suggested, but most were rejected due to age, health, or questionable reputations. Finally, they settled on someone unexpected. His name was Hyman, a quiet man in his early 30s who rarely sought attention. He wasn't flashy or charismatic like other leaders. In fact, he seemed almost ordinary, but there was something about him, something unshakable that made people listen when he spoke. When Yoonji first met Haemin, she found herself intrigued despite her reservations. He arrived wearing simple clothes, nothing elaborate or ceremonial. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his brown eyes held an intensity that made her pause. There was no arrogance in his posture, no attempt to impress. Instead, he carried himself with quiet confidence, as though he already knew what others thought of him and didn't care. "Your Highness," Haemin said softly, bowing slightly. His voice was calm, almost soothing. "Welcome, Haemin," Yoonji replied, forcing a smile. "I trust your journey here was comfortable?" "It was," he answered simply, meeting her gaze without hesitation. Their initial meeting was brief, filled mostly with formalities. Yet, as days passed, Unji found herself observing him more closely. During council meetings, he listened intently, speaking only when necessary. When asked questions, his answers were concise yet thoughtful. He didn't try to dominate conversations or assert dominance over others, and yet, there was an undeniable air of authority around him, as if everyone instinctively understood that crossing him would be a grave mistake. Despite his composed demeanor, rumors began to spread among the courtiers. Some whispered that Haemin was hiding secrets, that he wasn't truly as harmless as he appeared. Others claimed he was being used as a pawn by humanity's factions, sent to spy on Kaloria under the guise of marriage. Unji heard these murmurs, but chose not to engage with them. She preferred to form her own opinions, rather than rely on gossip. Still, doubt lingered in the back of her mind. Who was this man? Why did he agree to marry her? Did he truly believe in peace? Or was there another motive driving him? One evening, during a ceremonial feast held in Haemin's honor, tensions reached a boiling point. Several Kalorian warriors, fueled by alcohol and prejudice, decided to test him. They approached him where he sat quietly at the far end of the hall, surrounded by empty plates and untouched wine glasses. "So, you're the mighty human leader we've heard so much about," One of them sneered, leaning forward aggressively. "Tell me, how does it feel to sit among real warriors?" Haman glanced up slowly, his expression unreadable. "It feels much like sitting anywhere else," he replied evenly. The comment drew laughter from some nearby guests, but the warrior wasn't amused. "You think you're clever, don't you? Let's see how clever you are when faced with real danger." Before anyone could intervene, the warrior lunged forward, attempting to grab Haman by the collar. What happened next occurred so quickly that many weren't sure they'd seen it correctly. Haman moved with fluid grace, sidestepping the attack while simultaneously grabbing the warrior's wrist. With a swift twist, he disarmed the man, sending his weapon clattering to the floor. Gasps echoed through the hall as Haman released the warrior, stepping back as though nothing had happened. The warrior stumbled, shocked and humiliated, before retreating with muttered curses. Silence fell over the room as all eyes turned to Haman. Yunji watched from her throne, her fingers gripping the armrest tightly. She hadn't expected this. No one had. Haman returned to his seat as though nothing unusual had occurred, sipping water from a glass as if dismissing the entire incident. Later that night, Unji summoned him to her private chambers. She needed answers. "You handled yourself well tonight," she began, pacing slowly across the marble floor. "But I must ask, why didn't you tell us you were trained in combat?" Haman stood near the doorway, his hands clasped loosely behind his back. "Because it wasn't relevant," he said simply. "Not relevant?" Yunji stopped, turning to face him. "You just demonstrated skills far beyond what we assumed humans capable of." "That seems quite relevant to me." "I came here for peace, Your Highness," Haman replied, his tone steady. "Not to prove my worth in battle." 1. Yunji studied him carefully, searching for any sign of deception. But his face remained impassive, offering no clues. For now, she decided to let the matter rest. Perhaps there was more to this man than met the eye. Or perhaps he was exactly what he claimed to be, a quiet, unassuming figure, seeking unity amidst chaos. Either way, Unji couldn't shake the feeling that their fates were intertwined in ways neither of them fully understood. As the days stretched into weeks, preparations for the wedding continued. The ceremony would take place aboard Kaloria's flagship, a grand vessel adorned with crystalline spires that reflected light like prisms. Invitations were sent out to dignitaries from across the galaxy, and media outlets buzzed with speculation about the historic union. Yet, beneath the surface of celebration, unease lingered. Not everyone believed this marriage would bring peace. Some feared it would ignite new conflicts instead. Yunji tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing on the hope that this alliance might finally bring an end to centuries of bloodshed. On the eve of the wedding, Unji stood once again at her chamber window, staring out at the stars. Tomorrow, she would bind her life to a man she barely knew. A man who inspired both awe and suspicion. As she gazed at the distant constellations, she whispered a silent prayer to whatever gods might still be listening that she hadn't made a terrible mistake. Little did she know, the true test of their bond was yet to come. Far beyond the borders of Kaloria, shadows stirred. Enemies old and new prepared to strike, unaware that they were about to face something or someone they couldn't possibly comprehend. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, with sunlight streaming through the crystalline spires of Kaloria's flagship. The air buzzed with anticipation as dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered to witness the historic union. Princess Yunji stood in her chambers, surrounded by attendants who fussed over her gown, a flowing silver dress, adorned with intricate patterns that shimmered like starlight. She barely noticed their efforts, her thoughts consumed by what lay ahead. Hamin waited in a separate chamber, dressed in formal attire provided by Kalorian tailors. His dark suit was simple yet elegant, reflecting his preference for understated elegance. He stood quietly, gazing out at the assembled crowd through a window. Though he appeared calm, there was a faint tension in his posture, as though he too sensed the weight of the moment. When the ceremony began, The hall fell silent. Yoonji walked down the aisle, accompanied by her mother, Queen Myung-suk, whose regal presence commanded respect, even in such an emotional setting. Haemin turned to face her, his expression unreadable but steady. As they exchanged vows under the watchful eyes of countless guests, Yoonji couldn't help but wonder if this act would truly bring peace or merely delay the inevitable storm. After the ceremony, celebrations erupted throughout the ship. Music filled the air, and dancers moved gracefully across floating platforms suspended above glowing pools of liquid light. Yet, amidst the festivities, whispers continued to circulate. Some praised the union as a beacon of hope, while others dismissed it as a hollow gesture doomed to fail. Yoonji tried to ignore the doubters, focusing instead on getting to know her new husband. Over the next few days, they spent time together, exploring the ship and sharing quiet conversations about their respective worlds. Haemin spoke little of himself but listened intently when Yoonji shared stories of Kaloria's history and traditions. He seemed genuinely interested, asking thoughtful questions that revealed a depth of understanding beyond what most humans possessed. Despite these moments of connection, Yoonji couldn't shake the feeling that Haemin was holding something back. There were times when she caught him staring into the distance, his brow furrowed as though lost in thought. When she asked him about it, he simply smiled and said, "Just thinking." One evening, as they strolled along a viewing deck overlooking the vastness of space, Yoonji decided to press further. "You're not like other humans," she said softly, breaking the silence between them. Haemin glanced at her, his expression neutral. "What makes you say that?" "I don't know," she admitted. "It's just, there's something about you. Something I can't quite explain." He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "Maybe I'm just better at hiding my flaws than others." Yoonji frowned, unsure whether to believe him. "Or maybe you're not telling me everything." For a moment, Haemin hesitated, as though weighing his words carefully. Then, he sighed and looked away. "There are things I haven't told you, yes, but not because I don't trust you. It's because some truths are better left unsaid until the time is right." Before Yoonji could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. Red lights flashed overhead as crew members scrambled to their stations. A voice echoed over the intercom, announcing an incoming threat. "Enemy fleet detected. All personnel prepare for battle." Yoonji's heart sank as she turned to Haemin, searching his face for any sign of fear or uncertainty. Instead, she found only calm resolve. "Stay here," he instructed firmly, already moving toward the nearest exit. "No," she protested, grabbing his arm. "You're not going alone. This isn't your fight," he replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "It's our fight now," she countered, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Reluctantly, Haemin nodded, allowing her to accompany him. Together, they made their way to the command center, where Queen Myung-suk and senior officers were already strategizing. The enemy fleet consisted of heavily armed vessels belonging to the Zytherians, a ruthless species known for their brutal tactics and insatiable hunger for conquest. "They must have been lying in wait," one officer muttered grimly. "They knew we'd be vulnerable during the wedding celebrations." Queen Myung-suk turned to Yoonji, her expression grave. "We need to retreat and regroup. Our forces aren't strong enough to withstand a direct assault." But before anyone could act, the ship shuddered violently as the first wave of attacks struck. Explosions rocked the vessel, sending debris flying through corridors and causing power failures in several sections. Chaos reigned as soldiers rushed to defend against boarding parties. Amidst the turmoil, Haemin remained eerily composed. He directed Yoonji and her mother to a secure location before heading toward the front lines. Despite orders to stay behind, Yoonji followed him, determined to see how he planned to handle the situation. What she witnessed left her speechless. Haemin moved with unnatural speed and precision, dismantling enemy drones and incapacitating invaders with ease. His movements were fluid and calculated, as though every step had been rehearsed. Soldiers who had once mocked him now fought alongside him, inspired by his unwavering determination. Even so, the odds remained overwhelmingly against them. The Zytherians launched relentless waves of attacks, overwhelming Kaloria's defenses. Retreat seemed inevitable, but then, something extraordinary happened. Haman stopped abruptly near the edge of the battlefield, raising one hand toward the sky. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low hum filled the air, growing louder until it became almost deafening. The attacking ships froze mid-flight, their weapons rendered useless. Crews aboard the vessels screamed in terror as their systems malfunctioned, leaving them stranded and vulnerable. Yunji watched in awe as Haman lowered his hand, stepping forward without hesitation. With each stride, he unleashed bursts of energy that obliterated entire squadrons of enemy ships. The once formidable Zytherian fleet crumbled before him, reduced to smoldering wreckage within minutes. When the dust settled, silence descended upon the battlefield. Survivors stared in disbelief at the lone figure standing amidst the destruction. Haman didn't celebrate his victory or bask in the stunned admiration of those around him. Instead, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows as though nothing remarkable had occurred. Back aboard the flagship, Unji struggled to process what she had seen. Her mind raced with questions, each more perplexing than the last. Who or what was Haman? How had he accomplished such feats? And why had he kept this power hidden until now? She found him later in their quarters, sitting quietly by the window. He didn't acknowledge her presence immediately, seemingly lost in thought. Finally, he spoke without looking at her. "I warned you there were truths better left unsaid," he murmured, his voice heavy with regret. "You should have told me," Unji replied, her tone firm, but not accusatory. "And risked losing your trust before it even began?" Haman countered, finally meeting her gaze. "I came here for peace, Unji, not to be feared or worshipped." Yunji studied him carefully, weighing his words. Despite everything, she realized she still trusted him. Whatever secrets he carried, whatever powers he possessed, they didn't change the fact that he had saved countless lives today, including hers. "Then tell me now," she said softly. "Whatever it is, I deserve to know." Haman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Very well," he agreed. "But not tonight. This isn't the time or place." As they sat together in silence, Yunji felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. For the first time since their marriage, she believed she might finally understand the man she had vowed to stand beside. Yet, deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that greater challenges and revelations still lay ahead. The aftermath of the battle left Kaloria's flagship scarred but still intact. Smoke lingered in the corridors, and repair crews worked tirelessly to mend the damage caused by the Zytherian assault. Despite their victory, the mood aboard the ship was somber. Soldiers and civilians alike whispered about what they had witnessed, how one man, seemingly ordinary, had turned the tide of an impossible fight. Yunji paced restlessly in her quarters, her mind racing with unanswered questions. Haman's words from earlier echoed in her thoughts. "I came here for peace, not to be feared or worshipped." But how could anyone look at him now and not feel both? She wanted answers, needed them, yet she also feared what truths might lie beneath his calm exterior. When Haman finally returned to their shared chambers, he found Unji waiting for him. Her arms were crossed, and her silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim light. "We need to talk," she said firmly, her voice leaving no room for evasion. Haman nodded, closing the door behind him. He moved to sit on a low couch near the window, gesturing for her to join him. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched between them like a fragile thread, ready to snap under the weight of unspoken truths. "I owe you an explanation," Haman began, his tone measured, but tinged with reluctance. "But I don't know where to start." "Start with who you are," Yunji replied, her gaze unwavering. Because I know now that you're more than just a human leader. Heyman sighed deeply, leaning back against the cushions. You're right, he admitted. I'm not entirely human. Not anymore. Not. Yunji frowned, her heart pounding. What do you mean? A long time ago. Heyman continued, choosing his words carefully. I was involved in experiments. Scientists were trying to create something. A weapon. A savior. I don't even know anymore. They succeeded, but at a cost. Whatever they did to me, changed me. Gave me abilities I never asked for, and can't fully control. He paused, glancing at Yunji as though gauging her reaction. When she didn't interrupt, he went on. At first, I tried to use these powers for good, to protect people, but it always ended badly. People feared me, hated me, or tried to exploit me. So I stopped. I kept my head down, lived quietly, and hoped no one would ever find out. Yunji listened intently, her initial shock giving way to a growing sense of understanding. That's why you agreed to this marriage, she said slowly. Not because you believed in peace, but because you thought hiding among us would keep you safe. That's part of it, Heyman admitted. But when I met you, I saw something different, a chance to truly make a difference without drawing attention to myself. Or so I thought. Yunji looked away, processing his words. She felt a mixture of emotions, anger, confusion, and even pity. But above all, she felt a strange connection to him. Like her, he carried burdens far heavier than anyone realized. You should have told me sooner, she said finally, her voice softer now. And risk losing your trust before it even began? Heyman countered. Would you have accepted me if you knew what I was capable of? Yunji hesitated. The truth was, she wasn't sure. But she couldn't deny that his actions had saved countless lives, including hers. Whatever he was, he had used his power to protect, not destroy. We'll figure this out together, she said at last, meeting his gaze. But you have to promise me one thing. No. What's that? No more secrets. If we're going to face whatever comes next, we need to trust each other. Completely. Heyman nodded, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. Agreed. In the days that followed, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. Reports of Heyman's heroics reached every corner, sparking both admiration and fear. Some hailed him as a savior, while others viewed him as a threat. Diplomatic tensions rose as factions debated whether his presence strengthened or endangered the fragile alliance between Kaloria and humanity. Queen Myung-suk summoned Yunji and Heymin to the Royal Council chamber, where senior advisors gathered to discuss their next steps. The queen's expression was stern as she addressed the group. The Zytherians will not forget this defeat, she warned. They will regroup and return stronger than before. We must prepare for war. But war is exactly what we sought to avoid, Yunji protested. Isn't there another way? Diplomacy has its limits, one advisor interjected. The Zytherians respect only strength. If we show weakness, they will crush us. Heyman remained silent throughout the discussion, listening intently, but offering no immediate input. When the meeting concluded, Yunji pulled him aside. What are you thinking? She asked. You haven't said a word. I'm thinking about the future, Heyman replied. If we fight, innocent lives will be lost. But if we surrender, the same thing will happen. There's no easy answer. Then what do? We adapt, he said simply. Find a middle ground. Show strength without provoking further conflict. Yunji nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her mind. She trusted Heyman's judgment, but the path ahead seemed fraught with danger. Meanwhile, rumors of Heyman's abilities reached the ears of enemies old and new. Among them was Commander Kyra Voss, a ruthless Zytherian tactician known for her cunning strategies and brutal efficiency. She studied footage of the battle, analyzing every move Heyman made. This human is no ordinary soldier, she muttered to her second-in-command. He's something else entirely. Something dangerous. "What are your orders, Commander?" the subordinate asked. Kira smirked coldly. "We capture him. Alive, if possible. Dead, if necessary. Either way, he won't stand in our way again." Back aboard the flagship, preparations for defense intensified. Soldiers trained rigorously, fortifying the ship's systems and arming themselves for the inevitable counterattack. Hyman participated sparingly, focusing instead on helping engineers improve the vessel's shielding technology. His knowledge of advanced mechanics surprised many, though few dared to question how he acquired such skills. Yunji accompanied him whenever she could, observing his interactions with the crew. Though some remained wary of him, others began to see him as a valuable ally. His quiet confidence and willingness to help earned him grudging respect even from those who had once doubted him. One evening, as they walked through the ship's gardens, a tranquil space filled with bioluminescent plants, Unji broached a sensitive topic. "What happens if they come for you?" she asked softly. "If they try to take you away?" Heyman stopped, turning to face her. "I won't let that happen," he said firmly. "Not while I still draw breath. It's not just about you," Yunji insisted. "If they target you, they'll target everyone around you, including me." "I know," Heymin replied, his expression darkening. "And that's why I'll do whatever it takes to protect you. Even if it means leaving." Yunji shook her head vehemently. "No, you promised no more secrets, remember? Leaving isn't an option." Heymin stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Together," he agreed. As weeks passed, the tension aboard the ship grew palpable. Scouts reported increased activity along the Zytherian border, signaling an impending attack. Morale wavered as soldiers braced for the worst. During a routine patrol, a distress signal reached the flagship. It came from a nearby colony, a small settlement caught in the crossfire of skirmishes between rival factions. Civilians begged for assistance, claiming their defenses were crumbling under relentless assaults. Queen Myung-suk convened an emergency meeting to decide whether to intervene. Many argued against it, citing the risks of diverting resources during such a critical time. "We can't save everyone," one advisor declared. "Our priority must be protecting ourselves. But we can't abandon them either," Unji countered. "If we turn our backs now, what kind of message does that send? That we're willing to sacrifice innocence for our own survival?" Heymin stepped forward, addressing the council for the first time. "Let me go," he offered. "Alone. I can reach them faster and provide aid without putting the fleet at risk." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. "It's too dangerous," Queen Myung-suk objected. "If you're captured, I won't be." Yunji placed a hand on his arm, her concern evident. "Be careful," she whispered. Heymin nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. "Always." With little time to spare, Heymin boarded a small shuttle and set course for the besieged colony. Along the way, he reviewed intelligence reports, mapping out potential threats and strategizing his approach. As the settlement came into view, he steeled himself for what lay ahead. The scene was grim. Buildings lay in ruins, fires raged unchecked, and terrified civilians huddled together in makeshift shelters. Enemy forces patrolled the area, hunting down survivors. Heymin landed discreetly on the outskirts of the colony, cloaking the shuttle to avoid detection. Moving swiftly, he infiltrated the enemy ranks, disabling patrols and sabotaging equipment. His movements were precise, calculated, and devastatingly effective. Within hours, the invaders withdrew, retreating in disarray. When the dust settled, Heymin emerged from the shadows, approaching the grateful colonists. "Help is coming," he assured them. "Stay strong until then." As he prepared to leave, a young girl approached him, clutching a tattered doll. "Thank you," she said shyly, holding out the toy as a gesture of gratitude. Heymin knelt down, accepting the gift with a gentle smile. "Take care of yourself," he told her. Returning to the flagship, Heymin delivered a full report to the council. Though relieved by his success, Many remained uneasy about the escalating conflict. "We've bought ourselves some time," Heyman said, addressing the group. "But this is far from over. The real test is yet to come." Yoonji stood beside him, her resolve unwavering. Together, they faced the uncertain future, knowing that whatever challenges awaited, they would confront them side by side. The Xytherian fleet loomed on the horizon like a storm cloud, vast and unrelenting. Their ships stretched across the void of space, each vessel bristling with weapons capable of obliterating entire planets. Kaloria's flagship stood defiant but outnumbered, its glowing spires casting faint light against the encroaching darkness. The crew worked tirelessly to prepare for battle, fortifying shields and arming turrets, but fear lingered in every corridor. Many whispered prayers to their ancestors, hoping for miracles that seemed increasingly unlikely. Yoonji paced the command center, her silver hair catching the dim glow of holographic displays. Around her, officers barked orders, while engineers scrambled to address last-minute malfunctions. She glanced at Heyman, who stood silently near the viewport, his gaze fixed on the approaching enemy. His expression was unreadable, but there was a tension in his posture, a quiet readiness that set him apart from everyone else. "Are you sure about this?" Yoonji asked softly, stepping closer to him. Heyman didn't turn to face her immediately. When he finally did, his eyes held a mixture of resolve and regret. "No," he admitted. "But we don't have a choice." Queen Myung-suk joined them, her regal bearing masking the anxiety she must have felt. "We've done all we can," she said firmly. "Now we trust in our strength and in yours." Heyman nodded, though the weight of her words seemed to press heavily on him. He had never sought this kind of responsibility. Yet here he was, standing as the last line of defense between Kaloria and annihilation. As the first wave of attacks began, chaos erupted aboard the ship. Explosions rocked the hull, sending shockwaves through the corridors. Alarms blared, and red lights flashed overhead as crew members rushed to contain breaches and repair critical systems. Soldiers manned their posts, firing back at the relentless assault. But it quickly became clear that traditional tactics wouldn't be enough. Heyman moved toward the front lines without hesitation. Yoonji followed, despite his protests. "You shouldn't be here," he told her sharply. "And neither should you," she shot back. Reluctantly, he allowed her to stay, though he positioned himself between her and the worst of the fighting. Together, they pushed forward, navigating debris-filled corridors and dodging falling wreckage. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistant Xytherian boarding parties, attempting to breach the ship's defenses. What happened next defied explanation. Heymin raised a hand, and time seemed to slow around him. Energy crackled in the air, forming a shimmering barrier that repelled incoming fire. Enemy soldiers froze mid-step, their weapons rendered useless. With a single gesture, Heyman unleashed a pulse of power that sent them flying backward, leaving them unconscious or incapacitated. Yoonji watched in stunned silence, her heart pounding. She had seen glimpses of his abilities before, but nothing like this. It was as though he commanded the very fabric of reality, bending it to his will. Yet, even as awe filled her, so did dread. Such power came at a cost, one she feared he might not survive. The battle raged on, spreading across multiple levels of the ship. Reinforcements poured in from both sides, turning corridors into killing zones. Despite their numerical advantage, the Xytherians struggled to maintain momentum against Heyman's overwhelming force. Every step he took left devastation in its wake, clearing paths where none had existed before. Commander Kyra Voss observed the carnage from her flagship, her cold eyes narrowing as she analyzed the situation. "He's holding them together," she muttered to her second-in-command. "Take him out, and the rest will crumble." "But how?" the subordinate asked. "He's unstoppable." Kyra smirked, her voice dripping with malice. "Everything has a weakness. We just need to find his." Back aboard Kaloria's flagship, Yoonji noticed something troubling. Heyman's movements were growing slower, more deliberate. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, and his breathing became labored. Whatever powers he wielded were taking a toll on his body. "You need to stop," she urged, grabbing his arm. "You're pushing yourself too far." "I can't," he replied, his voice strained. "Not yet." "Yes, you can," she insisted, her tone firm. "If you keep going like this, you'll collapse. And then, what happens to us?" For a moment, Heyman hesitated, torn between duty and self-preservation. Finally, he relented, allowing Unji to guide him to a safer location. They found refuge in an auxiliary control room, where medics tended to wounded soldiers and technicians worked frantically to stabilize the ship's systems. As Heyman rested, Unji turned her attention to the ongoing fight. Reports flooded in from across the vessel, detailing heavy casualties and mounting pressure from the enemy. Morale was faltering, and defeat seemed imminent. "We're losing," one officer reported grimly. "Our forces are spread too thin. If we don't retreat soon—" "No," Yunji interrupted, her voice cutting through the despair. "We stand our ground. Retreat is not an option. But Your Highness, we hold the line," she declared, her tone leaving no room for argument. "And when the time comes, we strike back." Her words inspired a renewed sense of determination among the crew. Soldiers rallied, fighting with renewed vigor, despite the odds stacked against them. Meanwhile, Heyman regained some of his strength, thanks to Unji's insistence that he conserve his energy for the final push. When the moment arrived, Heyman returned to the battlefield, his presence alone enough to bolster morale. Standing at the forefront, he faced the advancing enemy with unwavering resolve. Energy surged around him, forming a brilliant aura that illuminated the darkness. "This ends now," he said, his voice steady and commanding. With a single, powerful gesture, Heyman unleashed a torrent of energy that swept across the battlefield. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, their crews unable to react in time. The once mighty Zytherian fleet disintegrated before his onslaught, reduced to smoldering wreckage within moments. When the dust settled, silence descended upon the battlefield. Survivors stared in disbelief at the lone figure standing amidst the destruction. Heyman lowered his arms, his body trembling from exhaustion. Blood trickled from a cut on his temple, but his expression remained resolute. Yunji rushed to his side, supporting him as he swayed unsteadily. "It's over," she whispered, her voice filled with relief and admiration. "For now," Heyman replied weakly, "but it won't last forever." Together, they made their way back to the command center, where cheers erupted as news of the victory spread. Queen Myung-suk embraced her daughter, tears streaming down her face. Officers saluted Heyman, their respect evident in their expressions. Yet, amidst the celebration, Heyman remained distant. He knew better than anyone that this victory came at a price one he wasn't sure he could afford to pay again. As Yunji led him to their quarters, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held for them. Would the galaxy see him as a hero or a monster? Would peace truly follow? Or would his actions only invite further conflict? For now, those questions would have to wait. All that mattered was that they had survived another day. The aftermath of the battle left Kaloria's flagship battered but victorious. The once mighty Zytherian fleet was now nothing more than drifting wreckage. Its threat neutralized, at least for now. Soldiers and civilians alike celebrated the hard-fought victory, their cheers echoing through the corridors of the ship. Yet, amidst the jubilation, Heyman remained withdrawn, his quiet demeanor a stark contrast to the revelry around him. Yunji stayed by his side, her concern growing with each passing moment. She noticed how he winced when he moved, how his hands trembled slightly despite his efforts to hide it. Whatever powers he had unleashed during the battle had taken a heavy toll on his body. Still, he refused to rest, insisting that there was too much work to be done. "Heyman," Unji said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done enough. Let others handle the cleanup." He shook his head, his expression weary but determined. If I stop now, everything we fought for could fall apart. We need to secure this peace before it slips away. Yoonji hesitated, torn between admiration for his dedication and worry for his well-being. Finally, she relented, knowing that arguing would only waste precious time. Instead, she joined him in overseeing recovery efforts, helping coordinate repairs and tend to the wounded. Together, they worked tirelessly, their bond strengthening with each shared challenge. As days passed, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. Reports of Haemin's extraordinary feats reached every corner, sparking both awe and fear. Some hailed him as a savior, a symbol of hope in a fractured universe. Others viewed him as a dangerous anomaly, a being whose power could tip the balance of power in unpredictable ways. Diplomatic envoys arrived aboard the flagship, seeking audiences with Queen Myung-suk and demanding answers about Haemin's true nature. Queen Myung-suk convened an emergency council meeting to address the growing concerns. Advisors debated fiercely, some advocating for transparency, while others urged caution. "We cannot keep hiding what he is," one advisor argued. "The truth will come out eventually. Better that we control the narrative." "And risk turning him into a target?" another countered. "If word gets out, every faction will want him, or fear him enough to destroy him." Yoonji listened silently, her mind racing. She glanced at Haemin, who sat quietly at the edge of the room, observing the discussion without comment. His calm exterior masked the turmoil within, she knew. This wasn't just about politics or strategy, it was about survival. Finally, Queen Myung-suk spoke, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We tell no lies, but we reveal only what is necessary. Haemin is our ally, our protector. He has proven his loyalty beyond doubt. Those who seek to exploit or harm him will answer to us." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over everyone present. Yoonji felt a surge of gratitude toward her mother, though she also understood the risks involved. Keeping secrets might buy them time, but it wouldn't solve the underlying problem. After the meeting, Yoonji approached Haemin, finding him standing alone near a viewport. Stars twinkled in the distance, their light reflecting faintly in his eyes. "What are you thinking?" she asked gently. "That I'm tired," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tired of running, of hiding, tired of being whatever I am." Yoonji stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. "You don't have to face this alone. Whatever happens next, we'll handle it together." Haemin turned to look at her, his expression softening. "Why do you trust me? After everything you've seen, after everything I've done?" "Because you've given me no reason not to," she replied firmly. "You've protected us, sacrificed for us. That's all that matters." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Haemin nodded, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. Meanwhile, Commander Kira Voss retreated to a hidden base on the outskirts of known space. Her once proud fleet was decimated, her reputation tarnished. But she was far from defeated. Seething with rage, she vowed revenge not just against Haemin, but against anyone who stood in her way. "He's unnatural," she muttered to her remaining officers. "A freak of nature, and freaks can be controlled or eliminated. But how do we stop him?" one officer asked nervously. "He crushed our entire fleet without breaking a sweat," Kira smirked coldly. "By hitting him where it hurts most. His allies, his queen, his wife. Her plan took shape quickly. Using stolen intelligence, she assembled a covert strike team tasked with infiltrating Kaloria's flagship and capturing Yoonji. If they couldn't take down Haemin directly, they would use her as leverage to force his surrender. Back aboard the flagship, life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as possible under the circumstances. Repairs progressed steadily, and morale improved as soldiers celebrated their hard-won victory. Yoon-ji and Hae-min resumed their daily routines, though neither forgot the looming threat outside their walls. One evening, as they walked through the ship's gardens, Yoon-ji broached a sensitive topic. "What happens if they come for you again?" she asked softly. "If they try to use me against you?" Hae-min stopped, turning to face her. "I won't let that happen," he promised. "Not while I still draw breath." "It's not just about me," Yoon-ji insisted. "It's about everyone here. If they see weakness, they'll exploit it. You know that." "I know," Hae-min replied, his expression darkening. "And that's why I'll do whatever it takes to protect you, even if it means leaving." "No," Yoon-ji said firmly, shaking her head. "You promised no more secrets, remember? Leaving isn't an option. We face this together or not at all." Hae-min stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Together," he agreed. Days later, the strike team launched their assault. Under cover of darkness, they infiltrated the flagship, disabling security systems and bypassing patrols with precision. Their goal was simple: capture Yoon-ji and retreat before anyone realized what had happened. But they hadn't counted on Hae-min's instincts. When alarms blared throughout the ship, Hae-min sprang into action. He moved swiftly, tracking the intruders' movements and intercepting them before they reached Yoon-ji's quarters. A fierce firefight erupted in the corridors, sparks flying as bullets ricocheted off walls. Hae-min fought with unmatched skill, taking down enemies with brutal efficiency. Yoon-ji emerged from her chambers, armed and ready to defend herself. "What's happening?" she demanded. "They're here for you," Hae-min replied, his voice tight with urgency. "Stay behind me." Together, they pushed forward, clearing the ship of invaders. The final confrontation took place in the engine room, where the strike team had set explosives in a desperate bid to cripple the flagship. Hae-min disarmed the devices with seconds to spare, then turned to face the last remaining assailant, a Zytherian soldier wielding a plasma blade. The duel was intense, each combatant pushing themselves to their limits. Sparks flew as metal clashed, the air thick with tension. Finally, Hae-min gained the upper hand, knocking the weapon from his opponent's grasp and delivering a decisive blow. As silence descended, Yoon-ji rushed to his side, her relief evident. "It's over," she whispered. "For now," Hae-min replied, his voice strained. In the days that followed, the crew worked to repair the damage caused by the attack. Though shaken, they remained resolute, inspired by Hae-min's unwavering determination. Diplomatic tensions eased slightly as factions recognized the futility of opposing such overwhelming power. Queen Myung-suk addressed the galaxy in a public broadcast, praising Hae-min's heroism and reaffirming Kaloria's commitment to peace. "We stand united," she declared, "not because of fear, but because of hope. Hope that even in the darkest times, light can prevail." Yoon-ji stood beside her husband during the broadcast, her hand resting lightly on his arm. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of calm, a belief that perhaps, just maybe, they could build a better future, together. Later that evening, as they strolled through the gardens, Yoon-ji voiced her thoughts aloud. "Do you think we'll ever truly have peace?" Hae-min smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Maybe not forever, but for today, for tomorrow, yes, as long as we keep fighting for it." Yoon-ji nodded, leaning into him as they walked. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side, two unlikely allies, bound by duty, love, and the unshakable belief that even in a broken world, hope could endure.